You gotta play more lands.
We're not playing enough removals.
Counter spells are clutch!
You need to play more protection spells.
Try these mana rocks. So people have been calling me a fraud for suggesting cards all day, every day, but never talking about what to cut. True, fair criticism. Part of the reason though is that I also suck at cutting cards. Not my fault though, cards nowadays are just so good. Look at this. And this crap, these are what I used to play. And these are really easy to cut, not at the time, but in hindsight. These are some terrible cards, but nowadays, every spoiler season is like, that's a stable, ooh, just 20 more staples from this one set, wowee. And ratio is really freaking difficult to figure out in this format. There are just way too many variables for the collection of any meaningful data. So it's more like, I died to a Blightsteel last game, so I guess I'm adding one more exile removal. Oh, that reminds me. My commander ate a Path to Exile last game. That got me a land. Guess I'm cutting a land. Yeah, perfect logic. Time for lunch break. It's like navigating a dark cave. It's all vibes and nothing else. And you know what they say, where there is shade, there is shady business. These fraudulent pieces of cardboard, they rely more on vibes than substance. I mean, you can farm reputation in some other format for a season and feed off of it for years in Commander. Some of my playgroups still makes barely audible noises at the sight of a Jace the Mind Sculptor. And today we are here to expose them. Hello, this is Jin with Next Level Commander, and today we are picking out some of the biggest frauds in your Commander decks, so we can make room for the shiny new Universes Beyond stuff. Okay, some of these may range from a little to very debatable, but we have a fraud here somewhere. It's either the cards or it's me, so you're definitely not leaving empty-handed today. We'll start with crime on a smaller scale and build up to the far-reaching schemes. The top pick today has snuck its way into over 2 million decks. But we'll start with a classic, number 10, Wrath of God, in nearly 170,000 decks. While the black counterpart Damnation is a little more excusable due to black's relative lack of quality board wipes, white has no excuse. Yes, I get it, they never made a strict upgrade over this card because they still care about formats like Standard, but in Commander, we usually have time. But I mean, if you're consistently getting pressured on turn 4, by all means play it. Actually, you probably need more ramp if that's the case. But generally speaking, for just a little extra mana, you get so much more value and versatility. Let's start with Fumigate. This isn't even the best one, but for 5 mana, you're not only undoing their creatures, but a decent chunk of the damage they've dealt to you. Basically a time warp if you squint hard enough. Or we can get the versatility of blown up artifacts and enchantments, depending on your mood swing. Starfall Invocation is also really pushed. I mean, even Necromantic Selection is a pretty solid card. And lastly, Rout. I talk about this card every chance I get. It's not even a 10th as popular as Wrath of God, but trust me, all it takes is wiping once at instant speed and you are not going back. And just one more mana, we are in the territory of game changers. So ask yourself, do you play in a troll meta? No, not your friends, I mean the creatures. If not, do you need a wipe on turn 4? Also no? Well, congratulations, you are due for an upgrade. Next up, Harmonize. 250,000 decks. It's like having Skype credit subscriptions in 2025. Nobody consciously decides to play Harmonize anymore. You probably just forgot to opt out. And the card is never terrible, so you don't think about it. Now, if your deck is in green, you're probably creature-based, and if it isn't, you probably have other colors with better draw spells. So for these creature decks, whether you're going tall or wide, we have far more explosive and mana-efficient draw options than Harmonize. Again, it's not terrible, but it better not be blocking the way for something like Livestream's Blessing. That card is so good. Okay, we started off kind of mild, but we are just warming up. The next card is seeing in 350,000 decks. And this number will probably double if budget wasn't an issue. Force of Will. Yes, the Legacy and CEDH staple living off of its reputation from completely different formats than Casual Commander. Does your deck or commander generate so much card advantage that you would rather lose a card than to spend 1 or 2 extra mana? Sure, in clutch moments, it may be worth it, and that's why it's good in CEDH, because every moment in CEDH is clutch. And you don't get as many moments because the game ends on turn 5. But for them bracket 2 and bracket 3 games, those moments will be less clutch and more spread out throughout a longer game. Oftentimes you'll be short on cards rather than mana, and you look into maybe just hard casting it. Holy googly moogly, it's 5 mana. Yeah, this is why I think Force of Negation is actually better overall. Not many creatures are worth countering anyways. So yeah, Force of Will. Leeching off of its reputation from Legacy and CEDH, draining people's wallets. Cut it and trade it for some fetch lands or something. Number 7, we have another counterspell, but even more popular and even worse. Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast, which is basically the same thing. This felonious duel is taking up over 400,000 card slots. People have this obsession with playing these suboptimal color pipe breaks. I mean, sure, Pongify back in the days because it's also really freaking mana efficient. But not every deck has to have a counterspell, especially when it's not good. People are rating Pyroblast based on the few times it gets the Expropriate or Omniscience. Hype, I know, but what about the other 20 times when it's a dead card in your hand or when you counter something barely relevant? It's just like when people play Tithe. If living for those hype moments is why you play Magic, sure, go for it. But when it comes to winning or being more consistent, you're much better off taking advantage of what your colors are good at, rather than trying to patch their weaknesses. Another problem with these counterspells is it really messes with your threat assessment. Take the Mana Tithe example again. Players would use that card whenever someone taps out, because that's like their only window. Gotcha, haha, without really thinking about if the card countered will actually hurt you, and if it's worth making an enemy over it. Pyroblast has a similar dynamic to a lesser extent. How often are you countering a card because it happens to be blue, rather than it actually being any threat to you? Say you see this on the stack.
Octavia. It's big, it's blue, it seems like the perfect target for Pyroblast. But then if someone else is ahead at the table, what's the chance of this actually coming at you? Just countering this, you probably made an enemy for nothing and helped an opponent more than yourself.
Number 6, we have a classic, Phyrexian Arena, found in over 500,000 decks, many of which with blue. But I can't be making fun of you. I was fooled for years until the direct upgrades finally hammered it home for me. This is one of the best examples of how far momentum can carry a card's reputation. It was a staple in the early days of Commander, but in the year of 2025, it doesn't do enough. If you were lucky enough to drop it on turn 3, sure, it's decent, but even then it will take till turn 6 to be roughly equal to a Read the Bones. And imagine in the mid-game top decking this instead of, say, Insatiable Avarice or Siphon Mind. Yeah, Siphon Mind is still a sweet card, but Phyrexian Arena, on the other hand, is not. Number 5, Feed the Swarm. Now, I have an entire video about why sorcery speed removals are bad, so we won't be talking about that as much, but most people are playing this card because it patches your color's weakness. But like we ranted about earlier, is patching weakness what we should be doing? I mean, you can't patch everything. Sure, now we have a single card that can deal with heuristic studies and smothering tithes. But what about, say, sorceries? You're still going to lose to Expropriates and Primal Surges and Insurrections, no? Now, before you say black can't deal with sorceries, yes it can, Warping Whale. But you don't play this because it's just not a very good card. The same logic can and should be applied to Feed the Swarm. If you're in mono black, maybe, still probably not. But if you're in any other color in addition to black, please cut this card. Alright, number 4, Chromatic Lantern. Not the hottest take here, this one is quite commonly accepted as being overrated at this point, but still over 600,000 decks. I mean, okay, in 5-color decks maybe, but even 5-color nowadays has excellent budget fixing. They keep printing reasonably costed dual lands. Your fixing should be fine as long as you play a bit of rep. But 3-color decks, this is where you are scamming yourself. Do you also have an oil change subscription for your Tesla? Let's just say if you're having trouble fixing in a 3-color deck, your problem goes far beyond what a little lantern can solve. Get that land base fixed up. I mean, look at the filter lands. These used to be $10, $15 and now bulk, and they're sweet. These used to be a few dollars as well. Build a solid mana base instead of wishing to top deck some mana rock to fix your issues. And by extension, there's also Leyline of the Guild Pact, typical example of a card that sounds sweet, but doesn't actually do anything. Unless you're doing the combos, I guess. Okay, we are reaching the truly controversial ones. This is probably going to be considered a rage bait by many, but you've made it this far. I don't think further baiting is needed. Anyways, thank you for sticking with me, but our lovely little relationship might be ending here. Over 630,000 decks, Toxic Deluge. Which I'm sure will soon be an apt description of my poor comment section. I mean, this card is rated number 1 by a lot of lists. It definitely looks sweet at 3 mana, which is near unprecedented for a board wipe. And it's flexible in that you can keep larger creatures around if you happen to control them. But then why do you need to wipe if you have the best board? Now imagine the reverse scenario when your opponents have the biggest board. Yeah, it's almost like that's when you want to wipe, right? Say Jimmy has a 13/13, do you play 13 life to kill it? Or do you leave it and get smacked? Doesn't seem too good either way. Even 6 for 7 life, I totally pay an extra mana to gain 6 life in Commander. Especially if it doesn't cost me a card. So unless, again, we are constantly getting pressured on turn 3, just play Damnation or the new one, yeah, Blasphemous Edict. This is the one that should be a staple. One reason I believe Deluge is popular is again because of CEDH. Well, if it's good enough for a CEDH, it must be. Nope, that's a pretty common misconception, actually, like we talked about earlier. Yeah, CEDH is effectively a different format with far more action in the first few turns of the game. And the games usually aren't won or lost by grinding down life totals. In that scenario, Toxic Deluge is perfect. In the slower metagames though, paying more mana for something like Kindred's Dominance or Blood Money can get you so much more value. In a similar vein is our number 2 today, a fraudulent little critter in Birds of Paradise. Approaching 900,000 victims. Well, you'd think in a format where no one plays Lightning Bolt, Bird would be unbeatable, right? Wrong. The common theme of these CEDH or 60 card All-Stars is that they trade long-term value for short-term explosivity. But in slower and grindier formats like the one we play, this is justifiable in far fewer decks. Is your commander 3 mana? Does it escalate and snowball if you drop it on turn 2? If so, maybe, but the graph looks kinda like this. Explosiveness versus longevity. The sweet spot for most casual commander decks is somewhere between Rampant Growth and Cultivate. Cards like Birds and Dark Ritual are for the most extreme cases. And finally, congratulations for making it this far. We have our heavy hitter for today. Fleem, Goban's creation. Just kidding. It's Reliquary Tower. Yeah, this is such an easy card to put into every deck because it's a land, but nowadays even lands require springs. And I'm not talking about fixing, but the growing collection of utility lands that are synergizing beautifully with our commanders and our decks. But instead you play Reliquary Tower. People don't like discarding, just like many hate being milled. But it's silly. How often does your deck really needs that 8th card? Do you really need 2 threats, 2 counterspells, 3 removals, and 2 lands held in your hand? If you're discarding down to hand size in the mid game or beyond, you're probably already doing well, so this is just win more. And it's easy to remember the times when we draw 14 cards and get to keep them all, but gloss over when we get color screwed or the opportunity cost of other utility lands. It's stopping you from casting your spells, and imagine how much trickier Mulligan would be if you open with this in a 3-color deck. So ditch the tower and try some of these new utility lands. They even make colored mana. So here's the list. Again, every one of these are playable in specific decks and scenarios, but the number suggests that they are being played in way more than that. So take another look at these cards and see if you can find something better. And it's not just about these 10 individual cards, it's more about these categories of cards that can mislead people into overrating them and even treating them as default inclusions. Can you think of any cards like that? Or is there anything on this list that you're still going to firmly hold on to? Let me know in the comments. This is Jin with Next Level Commander. Subscribe if you like this kind of content, and I will see you in the next video.